welcome to the room brought to you by Dalal Street and WealthDesk. So I'm Sameer Mehta. I head marketing and growth at WealthDesk. And today I have Raj, who's the co-founder at STOA School, and Ujjwal, who's the founder at WealthDesk in today's room. And what we wanted to talk about today and get perspectives from Ujjwal and Raj both was about how fintech startups are evolving in the country. There are almost every day we'll be listening. We hear about new fintech startups starting up, either raising funding or generating a whole lot of interest around new business models that they're coming up with. So one thing which is not necessarily clear to everyone is how, as an employee, as an early employee, can you actually join such fintech startups? So there's a lot of cutting edge work happening in these fintech startups. So what skills are actually relevant in these fintech startups? What educational degree, if any, is valid? What do startup founders look for? So that's why we wanted to bring together Ujjwal, who's from the fintech side of things, who's constantly, I know that constantly looking out for people to join WealthDesk. And we also wanted to get in Raj because he, at STOA they're doing very interesting things to upskill, folks with a very new age kind of an approach, where an MBA is no longer needed, right? So that's something that they're doing very, very uniquely. So with that, what I wanted to do was to invite both Raj and Ujjwal to first give their quick intro. So Raj, if you want to go first and give us a short intro about yourself.
Thanks, Sameer. I hope I'm loud and clear for people in the room. Yeah, so this is Raj here. I'm one of the co-founders at STOA School. STOA School is an online business school that helps people break into business roles at startups, right? Like especially funded and high growth startups. Right? And we believe that we are one of India's best alternatives at this point of time to doing a full-time MBA. And over the course of the last 1 year, we've helped a lot of people who were not a part of the startup ecosystem, like people who are working in the IT industry, people who are working at smaller firms, people who are working at MNCs, break into startups, especially fintech startups, given the number of fintech startups that have cropped up over the last year or so, and the funding that has come in. We pretty much are helping people break into those roles. So that's about me. I think we can discuss as we go ahead.
How can people break into fintech startups? What skills, what education degrees do startups look for? But I think before we do that, what I wanted to do quickly was ask Ujjwal to give maybe a quick background about the new age fintech companies that are starting up in India and why so. Now if you notice across the spectrum of financial services, we are seeing newer variants, newer companies starting up that are solving a problem that maybe legacy financial services companies have tried to solve in a different way, or maybe it's an unsolved problem and startups are trying to solve it. So maybe give a quick background, Ujjwal, about the landscape of the fintech industry, so that everybody is able to understand what, let's say, a neobank does or what an insurtech company is trying to do, right? So help us with that.
Yeah, so I think the larger trend has been started around payments. So what has happened? I think I would say 2010, 12, 13, 14, the green shoot started, especially in Indian fintech industry. The tremendous innovation has started on two very critical components. One, we have sort of ubiquitized payments. Like today, money is so fluid on the internet. Like bunch of payment gateway API integrations, and you can enable value exchange on the internet. E-commerce has transformed everything we get on the internet, and this has been possible because money is so fluid now on the internet. And when money got so fluid from a typical hard cash, so which means that typically you can look at every industry which deals with payment at the end, which most likely every industry that we work with can be relooked at. And because payment was not fluid in the past, whether you talk about corporate payment banking or like pure consumer payments, the businesses where payment was a very frictional part of the like entire value transaction, because the money exchange was difficult. But moment this got very simple, seamless, easy to like do at a consumer internet level, the payments start getting embedded into consumer internet use cases, like whether we talk about e-commerce and or food deliveries or anything that we do for the lab. So which means that payment has been the epicenter of this major fintech transformation. The next biggest dimension to Indian fintech has been the Aadhaar India stack, because when we talk about financial services, the regulatory aspect is so important that you need to know the customer you are serving, especially when it comes to banks, insurance, lending, asset management, broking, and all. So the Aadhaar India stack, which ensures KYC in one couple of clicks, so ensuring the identity of billions of like 1.3 billion Indians in a plug and play model, which means that if you combine this payment and KYC, I can technically now look at every business in a very different way, which has some component of money exchange. So and when this is all technology led, so which means that the ability to embed that into consumer use cases is very contextual. Like for example, you want a home loan, you get in a contextual environment, or you are looking to take a travel insurance while buying a train ticket or a plane ticket. You are within that your transactional context of your ticket website. You have these insurance providers on an e-commerce platform, and on-demand credit card underwriting, which is happening at your card page. All these use cases have been created, and interestingly, because the core incumbents have opened up their infrastructure in API forms, which I call as an API economy, the fintechs powered by this mammoth infrastructure of KYC, payment infrastructure, and I would also include cloud in that, where ability to create scalable platforms is like plug and play if you are deployed on cloud. This whole thing, when you take this permutation and combinations of all these dimensions, you're talking about a complete reimagination of the financial services landscape, led by payments. Then it moved into the identity space because of Aadhaar. Then we're talking about the complete lending space, completely getting contextual in different use cases when it comes to EMI lending or corporate lending or SME lending or personal loan financing on the consumer internet. Then insurance, which was more a silo service service that we used to get, got embedded into our use cases on the general insurance side, term insurance side, home loan and all. And this is now what we at WealthDesk are transforming. The fundamentals are still same when it comes to building a fintech or a technology-led business. What we are doing is we are integrated with broking, so we have abstracted broking as a transactional layer, and on top of that, as a platform, creating internet scale wealth solutions led by WealthBaskets and many other things. So the fundamentals are built around the fact that you have enormous data, you have open APIs, you have massive open API infrastructure on payments, KYC, cloud infrastructure, and when an incumbent's opening up, fintechs partnering with them, and consumer internet companies trying to bring finance into their consumer context. If you match all of these, you can look every aspect of financial services with a different landscape, and that is why what we are seeing today is that the innovation is at scale. There's a lot of risk capital going into fintechs, and the penetration moves further because of the ability to bring bank accounts, broking accounts to a larger India demographics. The risk capital is pushing to create more innovative products. Like there are companies which are trying to solve teenage financial problems, like how do they get started with their first expense management, or how do they to start save money and all that. So both demographically we are expanding, technology has pushed this, a lot of risk capital, and the infrastructure is so exciting that if you want to innovate, it cannot be a better moment. So I think these all are leading to a very different environment we are talking, especially in financial services.
Understood. Thanks, Ujjwal. So, Raj, I want to bring you in over here because I'm sure you interact with a lot of fintech startups and companies that come to STOA to recruit, to understand the new cohorts that have come in, and I'm sure you help them hire from the STOA alumni base as well, right? What are the type of roles they're looking for? What are the kind of pain points they have when they're looking to recruit people to join? Because there is a lot of demand for roles. Um, what is the gap in the market right now for fintech startups?
So I think to add to what Ujjwal said, right? There's also another way of segmenting. Broad segmentation is at the B2B and B2C level, right? So you have a lot of consumer fintech companies. Let's say companies such as Grow or Zero, the more popular versions, or even Paytm, right? And you have more of B2B companies. This could range from this could be your Razorpay cash free type of payment gateways, right?
Right.
And right into insurance tech for employees and so on. So I think the kind of roles that these two startups hire for, especially when it comes to roles in terms of numbers, right, is pretty different. So B2C startup would of course look at a different. I mean, the emphasis on marketing would be pretty intense as compared to B2B, whereas wherein the emphasis is more on account management and sales, right? Selling to companies. The type of content also B2B companies create is different. The sort of products they build is is drastically different from the consumer products that get built. So yeah, you may have because of this you will have like different roles that crop up, right? More account managerial roles in B2B startups, whereas customer support, more generalist marketing roles that come in from the B2C side, right? And these are very specifically for business roles. Of course, both these startups need developers and product managers, people at the middle management, top management level. That though is of course a given. But at the ground level, yeah, we've been seeing a lot of marketing roles on both sides, as well as account management, customer relationship management roles, which by the way pay well, right?
Okay, so that's on the B2B side, is what you were saying.
Yeah.
Understood. So I think then Ujjwal, WealthDesk is at a very interesting place, right? Because there is a B2B aspect here, there is a B2C aspect, and we also run a lot of B2B2C activation, campaigns as well with our partners. So what are the types of, what is your burning requirement right now, right? I mean, while I know developers and product is probably everybody is fighting over them, but in addition to that, and maybe you can talk about that also, keeping it specific to fintech, but other than that, what are the areas that you really want to ramp up hiring very, very quickly on?
I think engineering and product is something which definitely I think is a very critical area where we are expanding very fast, and we look to expand very fast because it's a product-led engineering company. Like as a business, like our core moat or our strength is the platform that we have built, which is deployed across brokers, advisors, distributors, and all this till the end consumer level. So obviously product management around the entire B2C lifecycle activation, the end consumer lifecycle, product management around that, and then the different use cases, the verticalization at different use cases level, like serving a broker, serving an advisor, serving a distributor, serving an internet property where we can get into that product, into that app and all. So we have tremendous use cases, and these use cases are very unique in the sense as we talk about embedded financial services model. So we are actively looking for product managers who actually think how we can transform with such a massive platform and expand the Indian broking market over these portfolio, like our WealthBaskets and all. So that's the area where we are constantly looking for. Engineering side, I mean, because I come from a computer science background, so we've been so obsessed about our engineering, and we spent like I think we are one of those outlier companies, maybe I think in Mumbai, who spent first 3 years bootstrap just building the platform. Like it's so crazy to think like that. So you can imagine the foundations of engineering is so crazy that we till now. And the good part, being a platform, we don't need like many engineers, but we really handpick quality engineers, and we know for the fact once they are into our platform engineering team, the kind of innovation they will be doing, whether it is to achieve scale, whether it is to achieve open API architectures, whether it is to most cutting edge architecture on the cloud. Those kind of skill sets are fundamentally needed by us. On the front end engineering front, we are constantly looking for like great design engineers and people who actually could give real life to the product, working with the user experience team and all. So that's always an area where we continue want to expand. Beyond that, because we've been able to create such a great product market fit today, so we are constantly looking people who can help us to like create a very successful channel for our customers, whether it's a B2B partner or an end consumer of a B2B or a direct end consumer. So we are looking to expand our customer success team around that, because they eventually are the evangelist of our product with our partners and our end consumers. Apart from that, because we as Raj also pointed out, marketing and growth is one of the fundamental aspects of modern fintech companies, where they have been able to go to so many customers in the country because of the ways they market the product to the end customer, which is typically where incumbents feel challenged at times. So I think we are innovating a lot on that, around both marketing automation as well as growth hacking, as well as building content led marketing, where customers understand they are empowered to actually be part of the platform experience and become a paying user and experience these WealthBaskets on all. So we are constantly hiring around those growth marketing roles, uh, uh, which way we want to power both our B2B partners as well as serve the end customers. So yeah, I think these are some of the areas where we are actively looking to hire. I mean, across the channel actually.
Understood.
Understood.
Got it. So I think, Raj, let me bring you in here, because this is a very important question that it's been cropping up for a while, and you're right in the thick of it, which is, an education versus skills. What is more important? And keep in mind, I'm referring to both an undergrad degree as well as, let's say, a postgrad degree, right? Because at STOA you have a very clear proposition that you don't need an MBA to have the kind of skill sets that are in demand in the market. So how do you, where do you stand when it comes to, the education, the formal education that is available right now in the country, versus skills that can be picked up in through short-term courses or by working in startups where you have a lot of on-the-job training? And how would, let's say, this be different for a tech role, which is a software engineer role, versus, let's say, a growth marketer's role? So what's your perspective on that?
I think I look at it from a slightly different lens, rather than talking about education versus skills, right? It's more of a, because I mean, education mostly in today's time is about signaling, right? Which college am I from? It matters more at this point of time as compared to what I've actually learned there, right? Because I've seen people who have absolutely no academic background in marketing, let's say, land up in marketing, or have engineering degrees landed up in marketing without an MBA or anything in between. I've seen people who have a background in, let's say, chemical engineering land up coding, right, and done very well in dev jobs. So at this point of time, education in the country has become more of like, kiss college se hai tu, right? Like, which college are you from, rather than what did you even learn there, right? Of course, people who do computer science, I think those people are the only, sort of the only exception at times, building scalable systems, right? They sort of are better suited because of their, training, because of the formal training that they've received on, data structures, algorithms, and so on, to build like more scalable architecture. That is in my limited experience, that's what I believe. For almost every other role, I don't see your college degree, especially the field or the branch that you graduated in, having a ton of weightage, right? Like there is certain flexibility. You are an engineer, you can probably pick up any dev role because you have those analytical abilities, right? And if you don't even have an engineering degree, you can still, like, if you have an aptitude for marketing, if you are a keen observer, right, you like to sort of, you have a creative mindset, or even a number crunching mindset, right, you can get into like marketing growth. If you are super at maintaining relationships, you can definitely break into more account management, sales roles, right? If you are a incentive hacker, essentially, as I like to put it. So I think that's where I stand on the whole education and skills sort of a debate. I think it's a pretty flat playing field given the internet age, right? If someone has the motivation and will, they can pick up the ropes. But double clicking on that, going a bit deeper on the skills bit, right? I think you have very tactical skills, right? Which I think are critical for any person, right? At any leadership level, right? You need to be having a pulse of what works at the tactical level. This changes, especially in dev and marketing roles, right? Because channels change, libraries change, whatnot, right? You have to be on the top of the game. Otherwise, your competitors will definitely, edge you. Your CAC will go up. Your stack will, pick up technical debt and so on. But if you want to grow in organizations, you also need more softer skills, right? You need to be able to manage people. You need to be able to lead teams in environments full of uncertainty, which is pretty much the case with early stage startups, right? Or even like fast growing startups, then there are like, there are a ton of uncertainties. More so pre PMF, right? Uh, so yeah, I think many people you can pick up these tactical skills, let's say by taking a Udemy, whatever, Coursera type course, or a small skill based program. But the softer skills is where I think most people sort of hit a bottleneck in their career, right? 2-3 years in, you see many people stuck in their careers, and I think at this point of time, from what I'm seeing in the market, entry level hiring is not as much of a pain as middle management or leadership level hiring, right? Capital is scaling much faster, like much more money is getting poured into the ecosystem,
Yeah.
as compared to like the rate of talent growing and scaling, right? So
Yes.
as you climb higher, the problems get even more real, right? And people are willing to pay whatever it takes to hire that management level talent at this point of time. That's what I'm saying right now. And those require different skills.
Understood. So I'm going to come back to you, Raj, on the very interesting 2x2 matrix that you had put up on LinkedIn. But I think we have a question from Sharad. Sharad, do you have a question? You've been moved up to the speakers. You want to ask?
Yeah, so basically, I am a living example of planning to break into a fintech startup. I'll just give a small background of mine. I did a course on from IIM Ahmedabad for fintechs, but then what happened is they were just case studies, so I couldn't actually grasp what's actually happening. But by following people who are there in this space, talking to them, and I think being a part of like some volunteer programs of certain growth teams or something, because I come from a non-technical background. I'm in stock markets anchor for television, and I've been there for like 8 years. I've been an investor. But now seeing a dying industry of the traditional brokers from where my family came from, I thought why not wealth tech space or a reg tech space or an insure tech? How should I get in? Because technical people generally have their ways. There's nothing to against them as such, but it's easy for them to transition into tech or a product role. But where do our skill set come in for a non-tech person working in a mature industry? So something like that. Even after doing a short-term course from IIM Ahmedabad, I thought nothing happened. But I think getting the people into this active network which is there of the fintechs, started learning a bit more, and then I think I decided like just a disclosure, I'm a fourth cohort batch person of STOA itself. So this is where my one question I had is like the traditional study of an MBA I could have done. It could be like 2 years in the making, but right now the classes are happening in the home itself. So my entire thought process changed. Generally some of the fintech startup founders whom I interview as well. So their question has actually changed. They don't ask me where did you come from. They ask me what have you done. So I just have a panel. I have just a question to the panel. Like your proof of work would be sufficing for generating a signal to get hired by fintechs. Can that be done, or you just look at the degrees or the live projects which they have done? What is it?
Sure. I have some perspectives on that, but Ujjwal, maybe why don't you take that?
Yeah. So Sharad, I think couple of things. One, I mean, if you ask me, I will give you a very humble, real example. That's when I started in 2016 building this platform. Like, and this was need to be built completely on cloud. Like, obviously, I come from a background where I know equal markets, equal computer science. So, very unique combination. But till that time, whether I have ever built anything on the cloud and I want to build such a massive India focused technology on a cloud, I never did that. So I have to get my hands dirty, and when I get my hands dirty, that's only when you eventually able to actually build something and validate your proof of concept and eventually build. So I, as an entrepreneur, that's our day job. Every day I mean, from engineering to product to legal to compliance to sales, marketing, growth, brand, you talk about anything, everything we might have started somewhere in my entrepreneurial journey where I have never done that in my life before starting up. So I think fundamentally founders, if you talk across the board, they really appreciate this fact that you might not know something, but the very fact that if you have the aptitude to demonstrate that you, if given an opportunity with the right attitude and being part of a right culture, and obviously you have that sense how to evolve yourself in whatever responsibility you are getting into a fintech startup. I think founders appreciate that, because see, fundamentally we have built on those principles, because not all the things that I have done to build this such a WealthDesk platform with our team, obviously our team we together have done tremendous job together to build this, but somewhere we really appreciate the fact that you might not have a precedence to do something, but you have the attitude, and having your whatever background you have, if you can really position yourself right that I can achieve this if given an opportunity, and you maybe in cases where there's some apprehension at, let's say, a fintech startup where you want to get into and they have some apprehension, you can align with their thought process. Now, where finally, see, everybody cares about that. If you validate what you are saying and you eventually evolve, if you can create that risk element in your association with the right startups and bets, like put bet in the right way with the right founders, I think they will definitely give you an opportunity to work with you.
Thanks, Ujjwal. That means, to sum it up, it's like going to be like, if a generalist is there but he has that curiosity, fueling him and aligning it with the company's objectives. Is that the summary of this?
Yes. So generalist, actually in today's world, because we are so cross disciplinary in what we do. So the idea is that even if I am as an engineer, if you are not a journalist in your thought process, you might fail. So that I think if you have that attitude of being a journalist now, I think founders will love you. I mean, they will, if let's say you found the right opportunity. It is also important to actually get to the right opportunity also. Today I get so many messages from people. Out of them, some are really good because they really know what they're asking me. When they say that I want to join a company because of these n number of reasons, I might not be good at this because I have not done that, but why you should hire me, and that really reflects upon us, and I really get on a call maybe next hour or maybe next day, and some of the hirings I have done really, and maybe some are in this room also, that they have joined us like that. So I think you just need to align your positioning, and maybe as a journalist you can position yourself better. Regarding the tech part, as a lot of people say, the people with engineering background have this edge over others because it's a tech heavy industry now. I think there, one thing I always say when we have done bunch of webinars with CF institutes and all also, is that it is not important to be an engineer to actually succeed in modern day. It is also important to actually have an aptitude to things scale. Like, we hired people from research background and tell them your research which you do, used to give it to institutional guys, how you can be part of an internet business that we are building. We give them the perspective and they unlock themselves and they succeed. And I think important is to actually be a hustler and stay foolish, stay angry, which is so like we all of us here. But actually the idea is that in modern day, because we are in such a evolving high velocity space with so evolving landscape, that one cannot say that I have 10 years of experience to do something for the next 10 years. That environment has completely gone. So demonstrated skill set is what an evolving landscape. You need to have a demonstrated skill set in the past, which means that you can do in the future if given a right environment. I think you should focus on that, and I think you will get a great opportunity.
Thanks, Ujjwal. Hopefully cohort 4 starts today, orientation. Hopefully everything goes well at 6. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Sharad. I had a little bit of audio issues. Hopefully you're able to hear me. Raj, I actually wanted to bring you in because I saw a very interesting 2x2 matrix that you had put up, right? Which was market demand versus market gap, and how do you look at, how do you decide based on this 2x2 matrix, which is what type of role or what type of this industry to get into, whether it's a saturated job, whether it's a high opportunity job. So you want to talk a little bit about that, because that actually will help simplify how people can think about going after roles in a hot industry, and being smart about playing their way into the eventual role that they want to go into.
Sure, Samir. So I think the 2x2 was essentially if I'm to put it this way, on one axis you have the market demand, right? Like how many jobs are out there in a particular, let's say, domain or function that you're looking for, industry, whatever. And on the other axis you have the gap, right? Like gap would essentially mean like supply. How many people are out there who can do that particular thing, successfully, who can meet the requirements of the job successfully. Now, I think a good place to be in if one is building a career, right? And I'm taking the sides of people who are employees who are thinking of joining startups. You would want to be in a place wherein there is high demand, right? There are a lot of openings, a lot of people hiring for that particular position, but not enough people trying to break in, or not enough people trying to even apply, right? Not enough qualified people are trying to apply, because it is then and only then that you get compensated compensated well, and B, you have a better trajectory, right? Not only are you in a good position today, but you will grow quickly as that particular market demand grows even more, and your skills sort of grow hand in hand. So I think developers, again, a brilliant example of the same, right? Like a lot of job openings, companies are struggling to fill in those positions. Not enough qualified people who can fulfill the demands of the companies. Hence, companies have to resort to pretty much burning a good amount of the money that they've raised onto dev salaries, right? Just because of the demand supply mismatch. Right. So as an employee, potential employee, you want to take, it's in your interest to take advantage of that and move towards that, high demand and high gap sort of a spot, right? Another interesting point here is about product managers, right? I think although there's a lot of like hype around product management, and I think a few years ago similar hype existed around ML and AI and data science, right? If you remember the whole 2017 to I think almost 2018, 2019, there was this whole data science and ML craze. The one thing that people sort of forgot back then to take into account, and I think still forget to take into account, is that there are not enough product management jobs around for all the people who want to become product managers, right? So I think the market demand is there, it's definitely there, but it's not so high that you can just walk in and become a product manager, right? Even if you have good companies, it's not like companies are going to hire you, right? Because the number of people who want to break into that product management role. I mean, for some reason, the whole vibe about it being the mini CEO role and whatnot, right? Like you can control things and so on. A lot of people want to get in, right? Which I think is a bad way to enter into startups. It's tough to enter into startups as a product manager, right? But I think it's easy to enter into startups as a developer if you are skilled enough, because we don't have enough supply of developers. So I think that is that those are few roles. If you look at, I think an extreme case, right? Take the extreme case. Look at a call center executive. There is demand, but there's also a lot of supply for people in those roles. Subsequently, you don't get you don't see companies really crying about the fact that, hey, I can't hire customer support executives or data entry executives. There are always enough people in those roles and they don't get compensated well enough. So yeah, if anyone's looking to build a great career, you want to be identifying, keep your eyes out, let's say on LinkedIn, wherever, look at like roles that are high in number, right? Open roles that are high in number, but don't have enough like qualified applicants going in, right? I think that should be helpful, and it applies in fintech as well.
Understood. Got it. So it's interesting you brought up, the product manager role, and yes, I think that mini CEO bit is what is glamorous, but obviously they don't understand, or maybe they do, but there is a lot of unglamorous work that happens behind the scenes, and actually that's true for I think most glamorous jobs in the whole world, right? So if you talk to an actor, and they'll probably say the same thing, that you only see the glamorous part, you don't see all the hard work that goes in, right? So let me bring in Ujjwal here to talk about what an ideal product manager should be. What's a trait of a good successful product manager in a fintech company, right? What are things that you, for example, when you're looking to hire, I know we've had conversations with different people as well, what do you look for to understand whether this person will turn out to be a good product manager?
Actually, I'd extend to what Raj said, the interesting point around the fact that there's so much of hype around product management. Many people don't even understand the idea behind product management, especially in a consumer facing or internet facing businesses, like where you have the entire funnel of revenue activation or serving that customer with the right experience is built on like internet facing applications, and you don't have the ability to talk to that customer to make them a paying customer of your product. With that as a minimum requirement, product management for modern day businesses, there are not many people actually who understand this, comprehend this like problem when it comes to like having hands-on understanding about being a product manager. So and typically within product management, there are so many nomenclatures. Like before I talk about like what we look at, but let's say if I'm talking about product management in WealthDesk context, we have a B2B2C aspect where a complete product suite runs, which serves the entire B2B and their end consumer, so the entire B2B2C funnel. Then we have some aspect of our product which is pure B2B, so there's a B2B aspect of product management, which is a SaaS platform. Then there's when it comes to end consumer, whether you are serving through a B2B or directly to the end consumer is an end consumer, like a retail investor. So understanding the psyche of that customer, end customer, in how they want to experience the product, what are the challenges, how do you ensure that they don't have drop-offs, they get a great user experience. These are some of the things which actually comes under the principles of product management. And from a business metric point of view, what I call, like in our company, let's say for example, what we believe is that your product is there, so there is an expected business model which is already out there running. So from a product management point of view, we need to ensure that whatever strength you have built in order to serve the end customer, you continue to serve that with more vigor, with more quality, with more efficiency. And there's some terms we use called North Star metrics. So for example, engagement growth, revenue, it could be more around how many less feedbacks you get from the customer on NPS score and all that. And so that's one thing. The other thing is expand the capabilities of the product. So once your product is out, and let's say used by millions of customers, now how many in India actually as a product manager knows that if there's a product which is out there being served to more than 1 million, 2 million, 3 million customers, then I need to roll out something in future which will be impacting these millions of customers. How do you build that delta aptitude so that as a product manager you succeed in that delivery? I mean, that skill set is very limited in India. I mean, for example, if today another thing Raj pointed about the engineers quality in India. I mean, there's a very interesting article by Ken, I think in one of their series, they talked about India has put 25,000 quality engineers and everybody is fighting to get them, especially for building scalable businesses. Because beyond that, if you go, most of the people, it's not that they don't have the raw talent, but they lack the immediate understanding to solve complex problems of modern day technology, like to achieve scale, to create most beautiful experience on the front end components, creating those delightful experiences and all, which not many have done in their life. They might have the raw talent, but that journey from being a raw talent to being a great contributor especially in emerging high growth environment, it's not simple. So there are only 25,000 people who knows that how to do it, and there's so much of demand supply gap. I think same is in product management. There's so much of supply in the sense people want to become product manager, but thinking that it is more around specification building or just knowing the customer, setting the delivery pipeline or doing project management, but it is far beyond that. If you are just thinking that from a traditional setup point of view, this is what in the yesteryears, what relationship management or business development or business analyst or I mean, there are so many terms around that people used to think, or project management was about. Product management is very different. I mean, in our company, we also call it 50% engineering problem. Like, product management is so important that your 50% engineering or the implementation is done if your product management is done right. So these are some of the things which we look at when we look to hire a product manager. And obviously, we don't look for precedence that everybody will have that skill set, but if they have the aptitude and they can set up themselves in the right framework and can work in this high growth environment, I think we really look forward to that.
Right. So I think one thing, Ujjwal, given that fintech also has a lot of focus around regulation and compliance, right? And this is something that we face at WealthDesk also, right? In terms of making sure that in this industry we are following the norms. We are absolutely, RegTech itself is a sector, if we can call it that, right? So how can I mean, just a question. How important is that for a product manager? What are, where can they actually pick up information around the industry that they are getting into to make sure that the products that they are building are compliant? And I'll tell you why I bring this up, because a prominent startup founder actually mentioned how, and this is I think on Twitter or LinkedIn, I don't remember, but they said that, hey, you know what, we get away with so many things that the regulator doesn't know, and they were feeling proud about it. When I actually said that, this is not going to last, if you're not compliant with the regulations, the regulator, whoever it is, depending on the industry you are in, will come after you, right? And in fact, having very strong regulatory compliance is almost like a moat for you, right? When others will struggle with that. So for you, as when you're looking to hire somebody as a product manager or even as a head of a company that has such a strong product in an industry which has so much regulation, how important is that for a product manager?
Actually, fintech, it is like fundamental. Actually, you cannot build a product which is not compliant, and it's a very valid point, Samir, because lot of times when you look at a pure consumer product management, let's say if you're building something for an independent consumer, then in that case you don't need to look at some of the regulatory requirements set up by RBI or insurance body or SEBI for that matter, where we are actually building a product where on one side, let's say we have SEBI registered investment advisor, research analysts who are creating portfolios and they want to serve end customer. Now there are some SEBI requirements in terms of how you can distribute your product. So for example, you need to ensure that let's say your risk profiling is done in case of an RIA, or for you need to have a KYC fetch from the customer to the RIA so that they know who the customer is. And then recently Aadhaar based signing is needed for RIA investment advisor based portfolios. So these are fundamental. Now, if you ask from a product management point of view to increase have a delightful customer experience, this could come across as frictions. So a lot of these, especially and if the mandate is that you grow at a very rapid pace as a company, as a product, I think the founders you might have talked about, they might have this mandate is to grow at this velocity, which means that if you do everything in compliance, you might actually throttle your velocity of growth. And I think that is not right, because this is not a business of a quarter or a semi-annually or a year or 2 years. It's you build products for a decadal story, because this financial services is not about building a 2-year, 3-year company vision and execute. It is about building product for years and years, especially when savings money is going through your platform where customer needs to build trust. Regulators have created that framework to build that trust, and if you're not following that, it is not right, and it will not survive, not sustain also. So I think from a product manager point of view, if you are joining a fintech, regulation technology, or being very well versed with the idea, especially whichever area you are working with. Let's say in our case, SEBI is the regulatory body which drives all of these regulations, which we follow very, very minutely. I think as a product manager, this is very, very critical, especially for fintech startups.
Understood. Okay. Thanks. I think we have a question here. Pulkit, go ahead. And others also, if you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand, and then we'll bring you into the.
Actually, I'll actually Pulkit. I've been following Pulkit. So Pulkit is an interesting use case who have moved out from Google like Valley for 10 years. He was building Gmail team. He was part of the Gmail team, and actually recently moved to India to actually join the emerging fintech opportunity in India. I mean, it's an interesting case where people from Valley who doing some crazy innovation out there, they realize that there's a 10x innovation happening in India in fintech, and they just move out and looking to find that opportunity. I think Pulkit is one of those use cases. He might talk about his experience so that people around can get real insights about what he thinks when he moved from Valley to Mumbai.
Okay. Pulkit.
Hey, thanks guys. Thanks for including me. Yeah, so as Ujjwal said, like I moved back to India from Silicon Valley. I was there for about 7 to 8 years, and I was in Google for 10 years. Actually, I started off my professional journey with Ujjwal in my first company in DE Shop, which is a hedge fund, and then I went into Google, which is a hardcore consumer tech kind of a space for such a long time, for 10 years. Then uh, uh, about like last few years, I was seeing that this is like it's actually really magical what is happening in India. The whole jam stack and UPI and all these things, account aggregators now, which are all coming in. They are creating an amazing ecosystem to build and compete and do really great things. So I'm really excited for what's going to happen in the next 5 years, 10 years. I believe we have a huge opportunity, not just for Indian ecosystem, but like even to export some of these learnings that we are going to build up over here to other countries across the world. So I'm really excited to be in this space, and I'm just having like a lot of fun, like listening to Ujjwal and Raj and others here who are talking about the how to break into the space, and how their experience so far building. I'm relatively new here, so I'll be listening mostly, but it's really good to hear from these guys.
Okay, sure. Thanks so much, Pulkit, for that. And others, as you have questions, please raise your hand, and we'll bring you in here and get your questions answered from Ujjwal and Raj. So at this point, I actually, Raj, I wanted to talk to you because in our discussions, yesterday, you had mentioned that it's very important to look at a career as a 30 or a 40-year journey, right, and look at the long term. So that's actually good. It's very logical, but I don't think everybody thinks about that. So talk a little bit about how why do you give that advice, and on what, how can people who are just out of college, or maybe let's say 1 year, 3 year, 5 years of experience, how should they pace themselves?
Thanks, Samir. So, in fact, this is exactly the piece of advice that I got a year and a half ago, right before starting STOA. I think there's this tendency when there's so much hype around, right? When you read the news, you see person X raised this much in funding. Your friends in college, are getting paid so and so. People, whatever, are doing MBAs and whatever, getting crazy salaries. There's this tendency to want to get there yourself as soon as possible, right? There's a tendency to want to get it tomorrow itself, if possible, right? And I understand where it stems from. I understand where it comes from, but I'll explain through an example, right? Like again, the good old product manager dream. I think most people who are looking out to become product managers stand a better chance of doing so in 3-4 years down the line, let's say, right? It's a worthy goal to have, but it won't be realistic for most people to have it as a goal, like that I want to be a product manager in the next 3 months, or my first job out of college should be product management or APM or whatever it is, right? Because I think people conflate these two things. People think there's this whole there's this whole propaganda, I would say, around financially independent, retire early, the whole FIRE movement. Everyone is like, how can I make a quick buck and, just like retire or start a restaurant or a cafe, right? Like that. That is the sort of line of thinking many people come from, and like, I think that is self-limiting because, as you mentioned, a career is like people who are in their 20s probably are going to be hanging around, like have energy and motivation, whatever, till they are 50, 60, right? That's a good 30, 40 years. I think even though the world may be iterating at a faster pace and accelerated pace than ever before, we shouldn't forget that, like we also have time, and that our goals sometimes, however worthy they may be, they take time to get together. Any entrepreneur, right? I think even Ujjwal will testify to this. Ki, like on day one, you won't be able to build whatever a unicorn, or you won't be able to raise funds, right? Similarly, it takes years. It takes years and multiple failures to get to that position wherein you are assured of these, wins. Same with careers, right? Like I think I would like to use a classic example of say Nitin Kamath, who now leads Zerodha, but at one point of time in his youth used to work at a call center, right? The same I think with Praveen Jadhav, who is who built Paytm Money, current co-founder at Raves, who launched a FinTech app recently. He started off his career again in a customer support sort of a role right out of college, right? And same Kunal Shah, whoever, any example you take, people have slogged it out. I sometimes tell people that me and my co-founder, I think almost all of us have done like dirty work. We've gone on the streets 2 years ago, like distributing pamphlets, right? I've seen so many other founders do this dirty work, do the grind, and I'm not saying one needs to do the grind to be successful or whatever, but it is okay to do it, right? If the job requires that sort of dedication. Not everyone will on day zero be in a position where you can sit in a plush office and do quote unquote strategy and people gyan and directions. This is how you should do things. Many a time you need to start at the ground floor and do things yourself, take instructions, and build your understanding. And over the years, work your way up and be in a place which has a very good vantage point on what is happening. Be at a place wherein you're so skilled and you have niche skills that not many other people have, right? It is something that compound builds over time. So short circuiting that and acting like as if by 30 I want to be sitting on a potload of money probably is not the best strategy for most people, right, out there. So pace it out, right? Like it's okay if it takes 4-5 years to get to a an enviable position. It's okay. As long as you're having fun on that journey getting there. Right? And I'm sure there are so many roles out there on the market wherein you can have a lot of fun. Right? You can have a lot of fun, a lot of learning. So that is like my sort of advice or request rather to people at this point in time to just have realistic expectations and think of the next decade, how your career is going to shape out over the next decade, rather than next 6 months mein mujhe ye chahiye.
Right. Yeah, it's a very valid point, Raj, because even when I was recruiting for my team, I had people with 2 years of experience or less than 3 years of experience saying that I only want a lead role, I only want a manager role, I want to lead a team. And if I were to look at the resume and the kind of experience they have, they do not have that rich an experience to be able to say that I will lead others and tell them what they need to do, right? So and also I think this is a trap that a lot of people fall into, where they try and they want to move into a managerial role and not be hands-on, and that is the beginning of I don't want to say the end, but you will very quickly figure out that your skills will become outdated if you're not hands-on, right? So it aligns with what you are also saying, that think of it as a long journey. Think of it in 5-year, 10-year, 20-year periods, and then pace yourself, right? Otherwise, it becomes very difficult, and you get disappointed as well for no reason. I think that having those unrealistic expectations make it very difficult for you to kind of sustain yourself, right? So thanks for that. I think we are also going to be opening up a Q&A. So if you have any questions, please raise your hands. We'll bring you in. You can ask your question, and have Ujjwal and Raj answer them as well. I know there were a lot of people who had questions earlier, so please feel free to raise your hand. One question I wanted to bring in Ujjwal for was specifically around what are the type of attitudes or personality traits that founders look for when you're trying to hire. I know I have a set of very specific things that I want, which are in addition to functional skills. But I want to understand, Ujjwal, from you as a founder of a fast-growing startup which is scaling massively, what are things that you look for in people that you want to bring into WealthDesk?
I think the last discussion we were having around this thing that people want to have quick to success kind of opportunity where they don't struggle much and they eventually succeed faster or have a non-linear growth. I mean, I think that never works. If by chance, like out of 100, 2 people eventually get into some opportunity which actually help them actually like scale up faster without doing much, I think at some point they will realize that will like create problems in their long-term like growth story. Because the fundamentals of any high growth opportunity and as well as high growth career profile is that you go through a evolutionary struggles and discomfort, challenging problems, and that's what evolves us. I mean, when people talk about that this particular guy actually got 7-8 people team and they scaled up so fast and they did great things. I think one of the things that works very well in such cases is that the person who has led that, they have led by example. I think if I can't do something at scale and if I expect somebody to do that at scale and if I don't give them the right environment, then I'm a wrong employer. But the right employer expects that if I am giving you an environment where I am also equally like pushing myself to actually achieve a lot of these things, and I am giving you an environment where you can push yourself and do things, that's lead by example. I think especially when in a growing environment, it is very important that you as an independent person in a given setup, if you can lead by example, because unless you can't validate yourself, go on the ground, hustle, do things and solve problems. Like if somebody says that if I'm joining a marketing team, I can only do this X thing because that's good, but and can never do a full stack execution of things. I think this will not work in modern day environment, because actually one of the other things that people need to know is that if you're joining a company which is hiring in masses, then maybe that's not the right company for you, because companies which are hiring in masses lacks actually vision and execution. Like some of the examples Raj talked about, like look at those companies. Do they hire like massively? No, they don't. They hire selectively, but the people they hire, they know that they are entrepreneur in their own ways and they within their own capacities, they will do great things. So as founders, what we look at is the similar thing. We selectively hire, but people we want to hire, we want them to feel empowered. They really know what they're getting into, and they are self fulfilling in terms of achieving those objectives. And when they build teams, they percolate that culture, and they are hustlers by design. They really can get into the real problems and solve it, because not all things are very organized in a high growth environment, and you need to organize over a period. So unless you can't be part of that slightly disorganized or unorganized environment to an organized environment you are getting into, that discomfort, if you don't want to pass through that journey, you will not have a very high growth story as an individual. If you want to achieve great things, you have to be part of that hustle. Unless you are not, you'll not be able to achieve a lot in this enormous environment that India has today.
Got it. Thanks, Ujjwal. So, I see we have a question from Sudha.
Yeah.
Do you want to ask your question, please?
It's not a question per se, but I just want to add to whatever I have heard for a while in the room.
Sure, please.
So I have some experience with which I'm talking, but then this experience will not be the same for all. See, there's no one single jacket that's going to fit everyone. So that's my first take. Okay? So we need to first let me look from like what Mr. Sorry, just a minute. What Mr. Ujjwal was saying about being an employer. So from that perspective, I want to say that if anyone wants to break, I mean, if they're trying to get into any fintech startups or anything like this, one of the most important part is commitment, right? It's not definitely the core skills, what sort of core skills the person has, depending on um, where he wants to get into which position. And then definitely agile, he has to be very agile in his skills, and the soft skills. These are very broad terms I'm using because depending on wherever they want to fit, definitely this is something that one should first analyze with oneself before we put in our papers or whatever. Okay, and this would be a very similar kind of study that one has to do if suppose somebody wants to they think there's a great opportunity to get into have my own startup company and so on. This is important. But while I said this very generally, he did say that Mr. Ujjwal came from Google. He had many years of experience and so on. Okay. Sometimes what happens is, if somebody has greater amount of experience, so they understand the arena better, but there will be young people who actually are trying to get into the similar space. For them, the take has to be slightly different because they need to understand where their strengths are. And for the employer, definitely the commitment with which the person comes in, where is he coming from? Is he able to say, okay, these are my strengths, this is what I will do? Will he work his stock, right? Now these are some of the things that will definitely surface. You cannot just say something and then you think that you can get away with things. That's not going to happen because people are very, very, alert on all this. Sorry, this is a little bit of my take that I did want to share.
Sure.
So because everybody starts at a different level, and this is something that we need to look at. And as employers, we definitely sometimes do look at the commitment part. What does he say during his interview? And then we have this 1-2 months that we do a trial period, and how he's able to show or at least his commitment. I know he cannot show results then, but definitely the commitment. And then how he definitely, one of the things that we as a culture of the company that we need to be very, very careful, especially in fintech and areas, whether you are in marketing or whether you are in product management, is definitely the kind of the RBI and all the strictures are nowadays. You can't just say things and get away with anything. That's just not possible. So from day one, I think compliance is very, very important because I did hear people speak of compliance as well. Whether you're a beginner or whether you are a bigger company, definitely compliance is a must. From day one, that should be one of the priorities. In case anybody wants to ask me anything on this, I'm willing to say, but I was just trying to add to what was already being shared. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Yeah, and just I think as a correction, I think the person from Google was Pulkit. Ujjwal isn't from Google, but
okay.
Sorry,
I stand corrected. Sorry.
No worries. Yeah, but I get your point.
Yeah, I stand corrected.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for that. Yes, a relevant point that you brought up, which is the ownership and asking people to commit to what they say they will deliver, and then obviously help them, guide them. And people start off with from different levels as well. Somebody who is coming in from a like a strong pedigree versus somebody who's out there to prove themselves. Obviously, we should be willing to be patient and give them that support. So yeah, thank you for that.
to actually look at being part of a story where you know for that you might be giving up what you have built over like years of experience. So that's actually the good validator for many founders, that you are actually still hustling because you want to, you know that you have another 15 years to grow aggressively and you want to take that plunge. So I think it becomes a positive thing for you in most of the cases, especially with founders. So I think that's on the age part. The other part where you're saying that you come from a traditional BFSI background, so what you need to look at is that I think, see, the first step to actually breaking into fintech startups is that, especially if you are already in a BFSI segment, I think you need to look at the opportunities within your company. I mean, what you have been doing for years, and you know for that matter that the way you are doing it, definitely it is not the way to do in future, and you very well know that. So first of all, you know the opportunity within. So if you can actually, when you go and talk to founders and tell that, see, I have been doing this 10 traditional things, I know for the fact that we've been doing in the most non-scalable way, and this is not the way the modern businesses should be built in whatever I'm doing. I think you guys are doing great in terms of what you are building in this area, and I know what I was doing, I could have done it differently if I would have been a more like modern day fintech culture, or in a company which is actually driving the entire innovation led by tech and all. I know my aptitude is aligns to that thought process. I couldn't do it what I used to do traditionally because that's how the structures were and there was a limitation. I think if you start on that note, whether in your cover or in your resume or while engaging with the right opportunity, it will work out. Because see, people really, it's not like people don't appreciate where if you come from traditional background. You need people from experiences. I mean, we have hired people from traditional experiences, but now they are doing modern stuff. Like they have redefined the way they even look at their profile themselves. So I think what you need to look at is you need to do that retrospection, and I think when you next time engage with an opportunity, I think you will be better placed.
Thanks, Ujjwal. So just a quick pointer on what you said, right? When you're saying people have moved on from traditional to doing modern things and they've adapted to that situation, right? Have you been the person to give them that chance, or they've come to you after upskilling to understand what's going on in the modern fintech space? So that is somewhere I think a gap needs to be bridged, is what I understand. Or is it that the opportunity comes after you allow them into your company or take them into your fold and tell them that these are the skills you need to develop? How does that work?
So we take both approach. I mean, we have hired people with who have the right skill to complement us to scale up, and we have hired people who didn't have the skill, but they evolved into acquiring that skills, knowing very well during the interview process that they are excellent. They are cultural fit. They really have the aptitude and the hustle to actually to compound faster given the opportunity. So we take both. We are very flexible in that thought process.
Understood, Ujjwal. Thank you so much. Thanks, Samir and Harsh. Thank you.
Sure, most welcome. Okay, I think that was the last question. I know Yuvraj has his hand up, but I'm not able to add him to the speaker as a speaker. So sorry about that, Yuvraj. I think I don't see any more questions. So I think we can close the session for today. So thank you everyone for. Okay, Yuvraj is there. Hey Yuvraj, do you have a...
Hey guys. Yeah, no, if you're closing, I was going to ask Ujjwal a quick question. What does WealthDesk look like 3 years from now?
I mean, Raj, so I think the wrong session, man. This is not
it's a biased question.
But yeah, I mean, no, I'm just kidding. I mean, so yeah, thanks for that question. I think what WealthDesk looks like in next 3 years is I think at the end customer level, what we think is that we will be empowering retail investors with portfolios and wealth management tools, especially on broking platforms, which would not have been possible if we would not have spent so many years to build a technology which sits on top of broking. So I think we'll continue to drive that vision, and we'll empower the retail investors with real premium wealth management experience and make their savings money work for them independently while they do great things at their jobs. I think that's one thing which we'll continue to do for next 3 years. You'll see that. The other thing is that as a platform, we are looking to drive the vision very aggressively in ways and forms which will change a lot of things on top of broking. So I think that you will see as we move forward.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Wonderful session.
Okay, thanks Ujjwal, and thank you Raj. Thanks everyone for joining in for the session. We had fantastic questions. We had great points both by Ujjwal and Raj. So again, thank you so much. And Raj, wishing you the very best for what you're doing at STOA. It's, I think, something unique, and it is very definitely something that the market requires. So wishing you all the best, and Ujjwal, thank you so much.
Thanks, Amir.
Thank you, Raj.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks everyone.